Hello everyone. I had explained the previous part of the scene 1 in my first video. Now let us start with Graciano's speech, line 75 on page 25. Graciano notices the miserable state of Antonio. You look not well, Signor Antonio. You have too much respect upon the world. They lose it, they do buy it with much care. Believe me, you are marvelously changed. He says that you think too much about the world. You are so much concerned about the worldly affairs. He further says that those who think about the worldly affairs are never really happy. He says, believe me, you are marvelously changed means your appearance has changed a lot. Antonio replies to him, I hold the world but as the world, Graciano, a stage where every man must play a part and mine a sad one. He says that he thinks of the world for what it actually is. Here he reveals Shakespeare's doctrine that the world is a stage where every man plays his own part. He says that his part is of a sad person. Here Shakespeare seems to wish to convey the principle that coming events cast their shadows before. Here we get an idea of Antonio's impending misfortune. Graciano says, let me play the fool with mirth and laughter, let old wrinkles come, and let my liver rather heat with wine than my heart cool with mortifying groans. He says, if your role is of a sad man, then let me play a comic role, the role of a fool. Let the wrinkles appear on my face when I become happy and laugh. He says, let my liver rather heat with wine than my heart cool with mortifying groans. The Elizabethans believed that a liver enriched with wine would produce rich blood and thus lively personality. Graciano says that he would prefer to heat his liver with wine than cooling his heart with mortifying groans, deadly cries. Here again Graciano refers to the Elizabethan belief that sighs and groans extract blood from the heart. He further says, why should a man whose blood is warm within sit like his grandsire cut in alabaster, sleep when he wakes, and creep into the jaundice by being peevish? Here he means to say that a man who is lively from within shouldn't sit still like a carved white stone statue of his grandfather, or be motionless or still during the working hours, the daytime, as if he were asleep, and creep into the jaundice and invite jaundice by being irritable. Jaundice is a disease that turns the skin yellow. The Elizabethans believed that jaundice was caused by jealousy and bad temper. Peevish is bad temper, being annoyed and irritated all the time. Graciano goes on to say, I tell thee what, Antonio, I love thee, and it is my love that speaks. There are a sort of men whose visages do cream and mantle like a standing pond, and do a wilful stillness entertain with purpose to be dressed in an opinion of wisdom, gravity, profound conceit, as who should say, I am Sir Oracle, and when I ope my lips, let no dog bark. He says that there are kind of men whose facial expressions are smeared with cream and remain still, without clear expressions, as unchanging as the surface of a pool of standing water. They remain wearing a deliberate silence in order to earn a reputation for their wisdom and seriousness, and to show that they are in deep thought. And it seems that this type of people were to say that they were Sir Oracle, and when they spoke, no one should open their lips. Here oracle refers to the Greek oracle. The oracle was believed to be the voice of the gods, spoken through the mouth of priests. Now Graciano makes fun of these pretentious men and says, O my Antonio, I do know of these that therefore only are reputed wise, for saying nothing, when I am very sure if they should speak, would almost damn those ears which, hearing them, would call their brothers fools. He says that he knows these type of men very well. These people remain to prove themselves wise just because they do not speak. And if they were to speak, their listeners would call them fools. And for saying this, they would be damned, because the Bible says, whoever shall say his brother fool shall be in danger of hellfire. Graciano goes on to say, I'll tell thee more of this another time, but fish not with this melancholy bait, for this fool gudgeon, this opinion. Come, good Lorenzo, fare ye well a while. I'll end my exhortation after dinner. He says to Antonio that he will continue his description later on, and suggests him not to use this bait of melancholy, silence, in order to catch such a cheap fish like popularity. He bids farewell to Antonio and Bassanio and decides to leave with Lorenzo, saying that he will complete his speech of good advice after dinner. Lorenzo says, Well, we will leave you then till dinner time. I must be one of these same dumb wise men, for Graciano never lets me speak. He says, We leave you both till dinner time. He adds that he is like those silent wise men who do not prefer to speak, as he doesn't get an opportunity to speak in Graciano's company. Graciano says, Well, keep me company but 2 years more. Thou shalt not know the sound of thine own tongue. He means to say that if Lorenzo stays for 2 more years in his company, he will forget his own voice. Antonio bids farewell to Graciano and Lorenzo and says, I'll grow a talker for this gear, means I will start speaking because of this good advice. Graciano says, Thanks, I faith, for silence is only commendable in a neat's tongue dried. He says, Thanks, because silence is only admirable in a dried tongue of an ox. After Graciano and Lorenzo exit, Antonio says if Graciano's speech made any sense. To this, Bassanio replies, Graciano speaks an infinite deal of nothing, more than any man in all Venice. His reasons are as 2 grains of wheat hid in 2 bushels of chaff. You shall seek all day ere you find them, and when you have them, they are not worth the search. He tells Antonio that Graciano can speak a great deal of nonsense, more than any other man in Venice. His reasons are as 2 grains of wheat hid in 2 bushels of chaff. That means that main message of his speech is hidden in such long nonsense speeches that when the listener finds it, they find the message not worth the search. Antonio says, Well, tell me now, what lady is the same to whom you swore a secret pilgrimage that you today promised to tell me of? Here, in Antonio's speech, for the first time, we get an indirect reference of Portia, the Princess of Belmont. Antonio asks Bassanio about the lady whom he had planned to visit secretly. Bassanio replies, It is not unknown to you, Antonio, how much I have disabled mine estate by something showing a more swelling port than my faint means would grant continuance. Nor do I make moan to be abridged from such a noble rate, but my chief care is to come fairly off from the great debts wherein my time, something too prodigal, hath left me gauged. Here Bassanio discloses his financial condition, his damaged estate, property. He has spent everything, living in a grand style than his means would permit. Bassanio says that he does not moan, does not complain, to be forced to give up such a lordly way of living, but his main concern is to get honorably out of his debts which he made in his youth extravagantly. Bassanio further says, "To you, Antonio, I owe the most in money and in love, and from your love I have a warranty to unburden all my plots and purposes, how to get clear of all the debts I owe." He says, "Antonio, I am grateful to you in matters of money and of love, and your affection for me gives me an assurance and a confidence to unfold to you all my plans and intentions by which I can clear all my debts." Antonio says, "I pray you, good Bassanio, let me know it, and if it stand, as you yourself still do, within the eye of honor, be assured, my purse, my person, my extremest means lie all unlocked to your occasions." Antonio requests Bassanio to share his plan with him and assures him that if his scheme is perfectly honorable like Bassanio himself, all his wealth and utmost resources are all open for Bassanio's needs. Now, before disclosing his plans, Bassanio recollects his childhood days. He says, "In my school days, when I had lost one shaft, I shot his fellow of the self-same flight, the self-same way, with more advised watch, to find the other fourth, and by adventuring both, I oft found both. I urge this childhood proof, because what follows is pure innocence. I owe you much, and like a wilful youth, that which I owe you is lost." Bassanio recalls that in his school days, when he had lost an arrow, he shot the same arrow in the same direction, watching more carefully to find out the other one, thus taking risk for the both. He says that he offers this childhood example because he owes a lot to Antonio. He has already spent the money taken by Antonio extravagantly for a lavish lifestyle. He continues to say, "But if you please to shoot another arrow, that self way which you did shoot the first, I do not doubt, as I will watch the aim, or to find both, or bring your latter hazard back again, and thankfully rest debtor for the first." He says, "If you shoot another arrow that self way which you did shoot the first," means if you give me another loan with same faith you had given me previously, I am sure I will use it more carefully so as to pay your both the debts, or at least pay the recent loan, remain a debtor for the previous one. Antonio assures Bassanio of his love towards him. He says, "You know me well, and herein spend but time to wind about my love with circumstance, and out of doubt you do me now more wrong in making question of my uttermost. Then, if you had made waste of all I have, then do but say to me what I should do, that in your knowledge may by me be done, and I am pressed unto it, therefore speak." Antonio says, "You know me very well, Bassanio. You shouldn't waste time to appeal my love in such a complicated way. You are doing more wrong to me, doubting my love and my affection to you." He asks Bassanio to only say what he can do for him, as he is quite ready to do anything for him. Now Bassanio says, "In Belmont is a lady richly left, and she is fair and fairer than that word, of wondrous virtues. Sometimes from her eyes I did receive fair speechless messages. Her name is Portia." He says, "There is a lady in Belmont who has inherited great wealth. She is beautiful, and she is better than the word fair, as she is beautiful as well as virtuous." Bassanio says that he received unspoken messages of love from her eyes. Her name is Portia. Bassanio goes on to say, nothing undervalued to Cato's daughter Brutus Portia, nor is the wide world ignorant of her worth, for the four winds blow in from every coast, renowned suitors and her sunny locks hang up her temples like a golden fleece, which makes her seat of Belmont Colcho's strand, and many Jasons come in quest of her. Bassanio claims that his Portia is no less than Cato's daughter, Portia, who was the wife of Brutus in Julius Caesar, another drama of William Shakespeare. He further says that her worth is known throughout the world and suitors from all directions came to win her. He says that her golden hair that hang on her forehead look like golden fleece. Jason, a famous hero in Greek mythology, led an expedition to Colchos in search of a golden ram's fleece. Bassanio compares the suitors to Jason who go in search of golden fleece, that is, Portia. Bassanio continues, O my Antonio, had I but the means to hold a rival place with one of them, I have a mind presages me such thrift that I should questionless be fortunate. He says to Antonio that if he is provided with money to compete with those suitors, he is sure that he will be fortunate to win her and this way will be able to pay his debts. To this Antonio tells Bassanio, Thou knowest that all my fortunes are at sea, neither have I money nor commodity to raise a present sum. Therefore, go forth, try what my credit can in Venice do, that shall be wrecked, even to the uttermost, to furnish thee to Belmont to fair Portia. Go presently inquire, and so will I, where money is, and I no question make, to have it of my trust or for my sake. He tells Bassanio that all his money presently is invested in cargo ships and he doesn't have money or goods to raise the required money. He therefore asks Bassanio to arrange credit from anyone in Venice on the good name of Antonio, that shall be enough for Bassanio to present himself to win Portia. He says Bassanio to go and find out quickly and says that he will do the same. He has no doubt that he will be able to borrow money either because of his business credit or on account of his personal surety.